Well, this is going to be an interesting topic for me because I do not know how to review a movie like this. As you know, me, Junior Sand, not professional film critic, it says it on my business card, have never talked about like a real movie, a real blockbuster to come out. I usually talk about pieces of shit like the FNAF movie or fucking Aquaman. What the hell am I supposed to know about Dune? I never read. I never watched the David Lynch movie. And I'll give it a try because I want to talk about it because I did watch part 1 and I loved part 1. I think it was special. I think it was very well acted, very well directed. It had a lot of A-list actors being in this big budgeted sci-fi nonsense, and it actually managed to work out with like amazing visuals, a great score, and a lot of memorable scenes. But I can understand why some people didn't like the first one. There was a lot of setups to get to the second part. Part 1 is just setting up the characters. You understand the backstory, you understand what's going on, you understand Paul and like why he's going through this. At the end of the first movie, everything that Paul was surrounded was just burned to the ground, and at the end he just loses it all. So it was just set up for his character growth to be in the sequel. This movie does take place like 5 to 10 minutes after the first one, so you do need to see the first one. It's not like a standalone sequel where like, oh, I could just watch it and not have to watch the first one to understand it. It could just be its own standalone movie. But since I love the first one, of course I love the second one. This movie was amazing. I do like the characters in this movie. Both Paul and Johnny were pretty good together. It was finally good to see Johnny after Zendaya was barely in the first one for like 7 minutes. That must have been the easiest paycheck of her life. A lot of the beginning was well built. You see a lot of like great chemistry between these two actors, and it's not even these two actors that are great. Everyone else has like a well connected bond that you could actually see them being like, oh yeah, this is my group, this is who I know, this is who I grew up with, which is also a positive I gave the first one. Like there was a lot of character depth in the first one that I thought, man, that made my heart ache. Either that or I have a heartburn. A lot of connections are to this movie. It's about the theme of the movie, which is the belief of religion and spirituality. Paul is seen as this god, this leader of some sort to one side of the group, while the other sees it as it's just made up bullshit. The whole talk of Paul being like this chosen one, or was he just someone who's actually good at what he does to get to the position that he's in the end of the movie? And I think it works well because it builds a world depth. This movie has a lot of like lore and explanation, and it gives it to you properly instead of over explaining things like, oh, this is what we actually believe in, this is this is that. No, it just shows it to you instead of telling it to you. Maybe they'll tell you like some things, like itty bitty like bite-sized things, but you piece it together after a while. It just makes the world feel natural. You understand things of why certain things are happening or why certain things are shown. Like I think one of my favorite examples is like the whole difference between water between two planets. The first movie, Paul is from a planet that's full of water, that's full of trees. It would always rain constantly. But then in this movie, he's put in a situation where water is seen as valuable. No matter what you do not waste a single water. You could cry, but do not waste the tears. You could sweat, but you could recycle the sweat. If someone dies, they take away the water and use it for themselves. There's a scene near the middle where they show a fountain of water that's huge, but it's not used because it is valuable to them. It is used because it was given to them from people after they were dead. But later in the movie, it got affected by a certain event, and you just feel bad for it because you're like, man, these people's water, the water they've been saving up, is just gone. Something like that really builds the world, and I really enjoy something like that in this type of movie. Since we're talking about character, I want to talk about the best character in this movie, which is Austin Butler's character. He was barely introduced, and I loved everything about him. I don't know how to describe him besides a literal psychopath. Let's just say if he's bored, he would just kill you. That's it. And the way they introduce him in this fucking beautiful scene where everything's black and white and they have like a whole stadium, it just looked beautiful. I do think that's one of my favorite scenes, but one of my other favorite scenes is near the beginning. There's a scene where it involves like a giant sandworm to ride on top of it, and it is so beautifully done and so hyped because of both the score. Let's talk about the score real quick. The score for this movie is just wonderful. It is beautifully done. It's something that you hear and you're just hyped for it. You're just like, wow, that sounds amazing. And if you're in the theater, it just sounds booming, like boom, boom, boom. And with the cinematography is fucking fantastic. Wide shots are just seen as beautiful pieces of art. Fight scenes are amazingly done. When the movie takes place during night, it is beautifully colorful. A lot of orange is used, and I think it looks excellent. And the final showdown in the movie looked amazing. It just looked beautiful to watch. This cinematographer deserves a lot more praise. I'll show a list of movies that he's worked on and you'll see why he deserves every praise that he needs. The effects of this movie look fantastic for what it's used for, and a lot of it does look amazing. There are some points where it just looked a little strange, but with the budget they had to pay the actors that they got, I'm surprised it actually worked out as well, because there are movies that are triple the budget of this movie and it looks like crap. Speaking of salaries, there's a lot of like A-list actors in this movie, and I feel like, why were they in here? Like, Florence Pugh is in this movie and she's barely in this movie whatsoever. She plays the Emperor's daughter, and like, she was good, but this is like something where it's like any actress could have played that role. The fact they got Florence Pugh is just because they got Florence Pugh. Also, Christopher Walken was in this movie. He was the Emperor, and I was like, why the fuck is it Christopher Walken? Don't get me wrong, Christopher Walken is Christopher Walken. He's a great actor, but you expect him to say something funny every time he speaks with his accent. I do think the biggest mistake I've had watching this movie was not watching it in IMAX. I didn't watch a lot of movies in IMAX because no one wanted to go watch it with me, and I went by myself in this, but IMAX theaters were full, and I can see why this movie definitely needs to be watched in IMAX. There's a lot of movies I want to rewatch in IMAX. Oppenheimer, The Batman, and Spider-Verse. But also Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2 would be amazing to watch because they were definitely made for it. I don't have much problems with this movie. The only problems I had, I did bring up. Actors didn't feel like they needed to be there. There's some scenes where it felt like they were trimmed down, which I could understand. It's already a 2.5-hour movie, but I would have actually been glad to watch a 3-hour movie. I do think with all the planning and talking throughout the movie, I do feel like the third act felt a little fast in a way. Like, don't get me wrong, I still appreciate it more than like other third acts, but I don't think it was as satisfying as it should have been. CGI looked a little weird, but again, Hollywood, they always abuse their fucking CGI artists. Please take care of animators. I think that's all I really have to say about this movie. I did really enjoy the movie. I think I am actually excited for Dune Part 3. I didn't know they were making a Part 3. I thought that was just gonna be 2-parters, but after seeing the ending, I'm like, okay, I'm fucking hype. It's not like the first movie where you're like, oh man, now I have to wait 2 years to continue it, where it's like a setup. No, it's just like, you could watch this and never watch it again, but come on, it's Dune Part 3. I do highly recommend this movie, so please, if you have a free time, if you have a day off, if you have 3 hours to spare, go watch this movie in IMAX. Check out more of these movies that are made by the same cinematographer, and also check out these movies that were made by the same director. They're really good. This is like the big budget sci-fi movie that needed to be released right now. There hasn't been that many movies to release this year, and 2/3 of them are bad. But hey, we got Dune. But this is something that's big and epic and huge, with like huge celebrities and huge performances and huge score and huge visuals to come out and make you want to watch it in theaters. So I'm gonna give Dune Part 2 a 9 out of 10. Also, I'm sorry if you thought this review was a bit I don't know what else to say about it. I will talk about other movies soon, but god damn it, why did this video have to do so good? Now I have to review a fucking Megamind show. God damn it. Thank you for liking, thank you for subbing. Comment down below your thoughts on the movie, if you're gonna plan on watching it, what other movies you want me to review this year, what other shows. Check me out on Letterboxd, and the moral of the story, you have to be ready.
The world can wait. No need to hurry.
I say let's boogie.